Hello everyone, welcome to my home, welcome to my office. Welcome to a real experiment for both Erin and myself. Erin has this amazing website and she's such a help for writers, an amazing writer herself. And she and I have decided that we could do a pseudo interview with using video. So here we go. I'm going to read what she has written to me. She said, "Hi Elaine, thank you so much for writing the Loyalist series. It truly showed me another side to the American Revolution through common people's eyes." She says, "Would you like to start out by telling us about your series and the latest release, The Loyalist Legacy?" Well, I do have here The Loyalist Legacy, and this is book 3 in my Loyalist trilogy, and it actually is the final book. It brings the Loyalists who started out in New York State in 1778, a young couple. He decided to join Butler's Rangers and fight for the British, and he left her at home on the farm to try to hold on to their land. Of course, it was the American Revolution. The second book, The Loyalist Luck, takes us from that same point into the Niagara Peninsula in Canada here, and goes really right up to the end of the War of 1812. It's about Canadians and Americans, but particularly about Canadians before Canada was even thought of. The third book, the one I just showed you, is those same Canadians, the Garner family, and now they're moving into the interior of present-day Ontario, and a lot of the things that were absolutely life-threatening and so challenging for the pioneers back in the day. I guess the next thing I should do is read you her next question here. She says, "What made you decide to write about this family? Did they truly exist, or did you create them from stories of many people?" Well, that's just an interesting question, because we never really know as authors how the whole thing comes together. At least I don't. But a part of this journey of mine has been finding out what happened to my own ancestors. And so when I found out where my great-great-great-grandparents first farmed here in Ontario on land that they got because of her father's fighting for the British in the American Revolution, when I found out where they lived, I just knew that was going to be the focus of the third book. So yes, the people truly existed, but what I tell about them, it's pretty much lies, because I don't know what they did every day and so on. But, you know, I studied the history and I tie it into what was going on at the time, and it's not too hard to figure out how those things might mesh together. The next question was, now that you've written and published the 3 books in your series, do you feel you accomplished all you wanted to with the story? Yes, well, it's a trilogy. I finished the 3rd book. So in my mind, that means I'm done. But you would be amazed how many people ask me, well, are you going to write another one? I want to know more about the Garner family. Well, I'm not sure what the next project is going to be. It may very well be another story about Loyalists, but probably in a different part of Ontario, or maybe something else entirely new. I'm just not sure yet. Can you tell us about the journey that your characters took you on, and what did they show you that you didn't see coming? Well, I don't know if they showed me anything. Although, you know that thing about authors saying, well, you know, there was a knock came at the door, and as I was writing about my characters, and I, the author, didn't know what was going to be or who was going to be on the other side of the door. And I actually had that same sort of experience in writing this book. You put your characters in certain situations, and I think that's part of the writing process, that you set up the whole scenario, and then all of a sudden, because your brain is so enmeshed with all this stuff, a new idea or a wonderful idea flops into your head. And so, yeah, you don't necessarily see it coming, but when it comes, you know it's great. And I can't tell you what that would be, because I'm not going to spoil the story for anyone. How did you do your research into the Niagara and Ontario area where your characters lived? Well, I happen to be retired from teaching high school. I taught English and French, and I also taught computers. And so I'm retired. I have the wonderful ability to be able to go places, and through the journey of writing these 3 books, my husband and I have made a lot of day trips. There was one day in February a couple of years ago where I went into his office and I said, you know, the sun's shining and I know it's cold, it's February, but you know, do you feel like driving to Niagara Falls? And he said, sure. And I just needed to go there, and I needed to find the place where the battle took place that I was writing about. And of course I pretty much knew where it was, but I needed to stand there and feel the lay of the land and so on. So my husband and I have done a lot of that. And once you do that, you can, your mind, at least my mind, it just pictures what's going on and takes you back in time, and you can see where the American troops would have come here, and where the British troops held fast, and then where the British troops were driven away. And this, by the way, was on Lundy's Lane. The Battle of Lundy's Lane was reported to be the bloodiest battle in the War of 1812. So it's a quite interesting cemetery that's there right now on Drummond Hill Cemetery is what it's called. So yes, I have gone, and I like to say it's fun to walk where my characters might have walked. How have you felt your publishing journey went for you with this series? What did you learn, and would you do it all over again? I definitely do it all over again. It's been a really interesting journey. There have been days when I just wanted to just bury my head in the sand and say, forget it, I'm not going to do this again. But those have been very few. The internet is a wonderful, wonderful resource for finding things. And you know, when you go to conferences and you meet other writers, and when you go out to writing groups and so on, everybody's going through the same thing. And I have found that writers are some of the most generous people in the world. Every time I've asked for help on something, somebody steps up, and they're just wonderful. So I would absolutely do it all again. Absolutely. Thank you for always being an engaged reader of my site, and for stopping by over the years. What are your plans for the future with your writing? Well, you know, I will be writing, but one thing I've learned, Erin, is that being a self-published writer and wanting to do it as perfectly as you possibly can has made it a little bit difficult for me as I've got more publications, because I have the 3 in the trilogy, But of each of those three, I have two electronic versions. I have the Kindle and the Kobo. So that now we're up to 9. And then I got the brilliant idea that I would like to do an audiobook. And so now that's 10. And I assume in the future I'll be doing 2 more audiobooks of the others. And then I decided that I would do this beautiful box set. And I decided then that I wanted to have all the covers the same, and so that was a perfect opportunity to go back to my first book and change the cover and change anything that I, in my perfectionist mode, had decided, this could be better, that could be better. Now, there wasn't a lot of that, but there was some of that. So really, I think my plans for the future are trying to keep up with the managing of all this stuff, and certainly I love to go out and speak to people, and I'm working on doing Skype interviews with book clubs all over North America and wherever we can Skype to. That's just great fun for me. It's so wonderful to talk to your readers. So I have those plans certainly, and I may actually write a little bit more about the Loyalists, but it'll be a different family entirely. And beyond that, I'm letting it just kind of sit there and happen on its own. She finishes off by saying, I really appreciate you doing this interview and thoroughly enjoyed reading the latest book, The Loyalist Legacy, as well as the whole Loyalist series. Thank you for being my first video interview too. Have a wonderful time at your book launches this week. Where can people find your books? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put those links right on the computer, the post that we're doing with this, and so you will see the links there. The books are on Amazon. The latest book, I'm still struggling to get the Kindle version up there, but you know it's going to be up there in just a few days, and may very well be there by the time you see this. I really want to thank Erin for all her help. You know, she does that fabulous site, Hook of a Book, and we have never met, but I feel like she's one of my best friends because she's always excited about whatever the next new thing is, and I treasure her help and her friendship. So thank you so very much for having me, Erin.